Dana Hall is works with the tax office, and she is the tax appraiser and PUV compliance person. And that's of interest to everybody who is in the agricultural world and owns agricultural land. And she's got a lot of information to share that you'd be interested in. Dana, thank you much for the course.
Thank you for having me. My name is Dana. I work with the Orange County Tax Office. I administer the present use value program. It is been talked about amongst the two previous speakers, and I appreciate all of their input as well. Present use value program is a North Carolina statewide program that is throughout the state, where it is available to landowners to have release the tax burden on their annual property taxes. This helps your land, instead of being taxed at highest and best use, which is always what property tax market value is. Instead, it is taxed at either the present use, which it would be of three categories: agriculture, forestry, or horticulture. For numbers, I'm a numbers person. Orange County acreage right now is increased in the 2025 reevaluation. Price per acre increased drastically, so you have up to 70 or 80,000 per acre. And agriculture, horticulture, and forestry rates are determined by Raleigh with the North Carolina the rates of what income is provided to the rates of how it's used. So then agriculture rate is $645 per acre. Forestry land use is $265 per acre. And horticultural land use is $890 per acre. So the difference between $645 and $70,000 is $69,000 and some change. That is a deferred value that you do not pay property taxes on. You are enrolled in the program voluntarily. You meet the minimum requirements, and then you receive the benefit, or the carrot that Ms. Brennan was talking about, the tool that is available to you to have to pay less property taxes because of the use of your property. Agricultural land use is consisting of one or more tracts, one of which consists of at least 10 acres that are in actual production. That word tract and the word parcel, which was used, is used. Parcel, you have an identification parcel number for your property, for each piece of property that you have, but you could have multiple parcels considered one tract. They need to be contiguous to meet the qualifying minimum needs of the program. So you could have, that's another thing with this program, is there are very specific what ifs for your specific situation. And there's always many rules to interpret how to get it qualified. But there's a lot of what ifs. So you could have two parcels that are, one is in 15 acres and one is in 4 acres. And if they are together and they have, on the 15 acres, if they only have like 3 acres of a field, and then and then if you have the remaining acreage or in production on the other parcel, combining those two creates the one tract that's in production to meet the qualification. You need to have income for horticulture and agriculture. You can provide that through a Schedule F, which is the gross income of your property. I require to see at least 1,000 on average gross income for the 3 preceding years in which you intend to apply for the program. The average, sometimes I get a lot of questions about that because, for instance, startup farmers, they would first starting and they purchase a property and they're trying to get in as soon as possible. You could have a first year that is less than 1,000. You have your second year that is increasing gross income, third year increasing gross income. And as long as you have an average of 1,000 in that 3-year period, you can get in sooner than waiting for that next year when you know you passed the 1,000 gross income, if that makes sense. Agriculture uses, row crops, tobacco, corn, soybeans, livestock, cattle, sheep, goats, pigs, chickens, horticulture land use. It reduces down to 5 acres minimum in production. This is becoming more popular that I've been seeing with applications. They are associated with fruits, vegetables, floral products, nurseries, bees, apiaries. Those are horses is agriculture use, by the way. Just there are 2 kind of newer additions to the program where horse farms have the opportunity to provide grazing fees as income for their horse farms. So that if they have the pastures that are designated with the fencing and the amount of acreage production, and they can provide that their horses are grazing on that property, that is considered acceptable income for agriculture. Horticulture, there is a new bees honey income acceptance is 2023, and that is associated with income that is allowed to be accepted with horticulture. There are no bee farms that are only bee income in Orange County. There are multiple farms that have multiple means of income. So you have to look at the sound management of the farm in order to understand some of the income that is coming in and accepted. This is all supplemental. This honey income is kind of a supplemental to what you are producing, which is probably generating helpful for the bees to pollinate your flowers, fruits, vegetables, things like that in the garden and what you have going on your operation. So with that being said, I think in Christmas trees, I don't have any Christmas trees in Orange County, but I've had one question about it, but that's it. Forestry land, 20 acres in wood land production with a forestry management plan. Forestry management plans will go into more detail with A.K. Kelly, who I communicate with pretty often. That's another thing that I'm kind of excited about within our Orange County departments. We have been doing more communication, I think, and it's been beneficial to my job. It's been beneficial, I think, to the planning department with some of the hot topics that they're talking about. And we, again, appreciate Si's comment. We're doing our best to what we have to interpret and go from there. So forestry land is 20 acres, wooded, and then the present use value program is open enrollment every January, every year. So you have the opportunity for new open enrollment to come and apply for the program through an AV5 application that is through the North Carolina Department of Revenue. I help completing applications. I help any kind of new applications that come in. Also, you have the opportunity to expand your farm unit during that open enrollment in January. There is also a late listing period where you can apply pretty much throughout the whole year. It's just a separate set that I need to coach you through to the Board of Equalization and Review in order for them to grant access for me to review your late application that you're submitting within the year. They have in the past, that is their decision to make, and then they would, if not, you would just proceed to the next January in order to get in. on a daily basis. The parcels change hands through ownership. The parcels change in size, and merges happen with parcel numbers. New parcel numbers are created every time there's a split merge situation where a parcel is 20 acres and it is cut through and split 10 and 10. New parcels are created every day. In Orange County, there's around 3,200 parcels that are enrolled in present use value program right now. And I am also a compliance review, fancy for auditor, for the present use value program for Orange County. I have started this auditing process in 2023. It is brand new. It was not established before like it's established as of now in 2023. And with that being said, we are required to audit at least 1/8 of the parcels that are enrolled in the program. So 3,200, I am expected by my 5-year goal to have auditing at least 240 parcels every year. Last year, I audited 180, so I am almost at that goal. When I am auditing the parcels, I am just requesting updated applications, updated communication, updated information. I have folders from the 70s in my office that have never been touched. They've been in the program since day one, and there are a lot of farms in our county that are generational owned, and that's how it goes. So now, I update applications through ownership change. Through the audits, I try to coach and help in any way to make the landowner be able to help qualify and stay in the program. But over time, things change with what they have had in the past, and unfortunately, sometimes they do not meet the minimum requirements, and then they have to be removed. When they are removed, it is a process called rollback taxes. That is that 69,000 value that is the difference that you don't pay in property taxes. The county requests that times 3 years, current plus 3 years of whenever the action takes place of you not qualifying for the program with the minimum requirements. So you can be in the program for a very long time, and then when 2027 comes and you do not qualify anymore, I just ask for 27, 26, 25, and then update going forward to the market value of that, whatever the reevaluation year it is. So present use value program through the audits are being administered, and changes are coming, and I'm catching up on a lot of changes with the audits and trying to get everything updated and treating everybody fairly and equally as to what they need to meet the minimum requirements. The changes that happen daily in ownership that can change. Individuals can own the property. The present use value program is an individually owned program where that would be who qualifies for the program. So if it is husband and wife, if it's tenancy common, brothers and sisters owning it, LLCs own it. But if I can break down the LLC individual level, that is acceptable. Secretary of State helps me with the nature of the business, is getting to what the property is being used for, and then there's also trust that he talked about. As long as the individuals own the trust, and then the main thing is a nonprofit organization cannot be enrolled in present use value program because nonprofits in North Carolina are not individually owned, and that is the interpretation that our office has established. So with the changes in ownership and application, and then there's also families or succession planning of, he mentioned in his slide, Mr. Brandon, the, what ifs of how you would like to split up if the land, just being mindful of, yes, I have 3 children and 1, 2, 3 get it, but you're not being fair to one if you give one all of the field and give one 18 acres of woods, and then they wouldn't have the qualification. I just be mindful of if there's any kind of lines that I have, flats come in and review, and if they would like, if you have any discussions with wanting to review that, I could be happy to do that. Any questions or anything? Yes.
This is a great presentation, great information. Thank you. With regards to like, if you sell it, if you have 100 acres, you farm and it's in PUV and I buy it, that's a change in ownership.
Correct.
Who, if, and I think it's what is it, 60 days that I have in order to roll the PUV previously to my name.
Continued use, yes. All right, continued use application is also one thing that I deal with a lot. It is the opportunity to sell a present use value enrolled property to a stranger. And if that qualified, non-relation, if they choose to accept the liability of the program going forward and they are approved, then no deferred taxes would be owed at the time of the sale. There is a part in the application built in part 5 for continued use where you would sign that you accept liability of the deferred taxes going forward. Once the deed is recorded on the date, and if the changes of the land use happen after that recorded date deed, then the rollback bills are requested for the current owner to be paid. Collections departments will go after the current owner on record for any deferred taxes. Even if you didn't own the property 3 previous years, and they will still request you to pay the deferred taxes.
So that's kind of the follow-up. So if I purchase it and I forget, or I'm not farming, the liability is on me.
Correct.
At that point as the new owner.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Have you had to remove any properties in forest use for failure to update a forest plan or failure to cut as a forest plan might have prescribed?
Correct. So we have the idea of the forestry management plan is a dated document, and it has in the document recommendations from the forester to do certain forest commercial harvesting activities. If that is not revised or changed, I have not taken anybody out because of them not following a forestry management plan. However, I have requested them to update forestry management plans that have been long past 20 years of what they have had in the past. It is our interpretation in the office that they are required to have an updated forestry plan on file. There's also other means which are newer. There's about 8 AV 56 wildlife applications. That's a different program, but it is also the same tax status, where it comes into play the idea of commercial harvesting of timber. If that's not something you like, you have the opportunity to do a wildlife management plan. Her name is Kristen Cathy, and she would determine how you would manage your forestry property on that route, and she determines whether it is agriculture or forestry, and then I code your property with the same values of present use value, but it would be wildlife. Yes. Yes.
If you have a present use value for forestry, is there any way that you could use that for a sales tax exemption?
No, sales tax exemption is something separate that you need to provide information to to NCDOR to get the sales tax. I don't,
Okay, so it's two separate
yes,
programs.
yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
You may have already answered this and I missed it, but for meeting the minimum requirement, like 10 acres for agricultural tracts, do the tracts have to be contiguous or can they?
You need at least one initial qualifying tract. So I mean, then that brings up a great question. Thank you. So if you have that initial qualifying tract, it has to be contiguous if it's multiple parcels. If the tract is just one parcel and that's it, that's it. However, there is, since this is a statewide program, you have a clause that is within 50 miles, you can qualify something that is not qualifying by itself somewhere else. And if it's within 50 miles of Orange County, it can piggyback off of that tract. Yeah. For example, I talk with the Alamance County, the Chatham, the Durham representatives of the present use value program in each county to cover my 50-mile radius.
One last thing, we've got about 2 minutes. Thank you again. You mentioned back to the V thing. We talked about management requirement, the income requirement, that could be supplemental to that. Is there a way, let's say I have a 4-acre tract and I'm growing, fruits and vegetables on 2 acres, and I have bees also. Does that qualify is the minimum acreage? Does that qualify if they're obviously harvesting and foraging off the pie? I know it's a difficult question.
Right, and until I'm told different, I am still on my 10, 5, and 20. Yeah, I have no, yeah. And then also to that acreage question, in the tax system that we have, I have a parcel that is 20 acres and it is 11 acres in production for agriculture. And then you have 1 acre or any home site acreage is coded as market value. And then any wooded acreage that is on top of any agriculture or horticulture land is coded as wooded value. So you have mixtures of uses on your property, and that helps get you the maximum benefit of the program because of, like I said, forestry rate is less than agriculture and horticulture. Yes.
Well, what you were just talking about, do you have to have 20 acres in forestry if you have at least 10 acres in other farmland?
So if you have, it depends on what your initial qualifying use is. So if you have 10 acres in agriculture and then you have 20 or 21 or 23 acres of woods, that can also be considered woods. But if you have more than 20, we require a forestry management plan. If you had less than 20, 17 or 16 acres of woods, a forestry management plan is not required. But the program allows me to code the use of your land. If you have field, it would be coded as agriculture. If you have woods, it would be coded as woods. And as long as you have the initial minimum acreage met first.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thanks so much.